So yes, the first thing you need to know about me is I do have a bit of a potty mouth. I apologize in advance. Let's make it a game though. Maybe you can count the amount of times I drop the F-bomb. Or maybe tonight I won't. The other thing that you need to know about me is that I'm quite nervous right now. And the reason that I'm feeling nervous is because my brain is telling me I'm not going to know what to say. I'm going to look stupid. But the one thought that really gets like my stomach churning is they don't want to hear what you have to say, Nikki. Like a very derogatory belittling shh. They don't want to hear what you have to say. So, of course, when I have those sentences in my brain, it makes sense that I'm going to feel nervous. Nothing has gone wrong in that moment. And nervousness for me feels like my hands want to shake. My stomach is churning. My heart is pounding. My throat feels constricted. And my tongue feels quite huge in my mouth. Like I never quite know what that's about. I am allowing myself to experience that emotion. I'm opening myself up to it. I am fully experiencing those sensations. I'm allowing nervousness to be there. If I was responding and reacting to nervousness, I'd probably be talking really fast and I'd be going like this and I'd be fidgeting and I'd be like stumbling over my words and I'd be wanting to do this. That's when we react to our emotions. But I'm not doing that. I'm able to acknowledge the reason why I feel it, and that's because of the thoughts in my head. I'm telling myself, if I create my nervousness, that's the best news because it means I can control it. And I don't have to respond to it. I don't have to react to it. It doesn't have to be a problem. So the reason that I'm explaining that to you is because as we go through, I'm going to teach you a skill on how to deal with your emotions. And I've done this at the beginning because now I've recognized the like my nervousness and I've recognized where it was in my body and I've opened myself up to it. It's actually gone already. Our emotions don't hang around. Research shows that our emotions usually last for about 90 seconds when we fully embrace it. So I'm going to talk more about this in a minute, but I just wanted to start with that as a real life example of experiencing emotions. So if I'm experiencing the emotions, so are you. And here's how I know. That's because you are a human being. This is my gorgeous human being. You are a human being, which means in that head of yours, you have a beautiful human brain. Now, I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm going to completely simplify the brain. And I work with the primitive part of the brain, the primal brain at the back, and the prefrontal cortex. Your primal brain is really old. That part of the human brain, not just yours, the human brain has not evolved for hundreds of thousands of years. That part of our brain is desired to try and keep us safe. And the way that it does that is by thinking anything new, anything different surely means death. And our primal brain is motivated by three things. It wants everything to be easy, so it wants to conserve energy. Made sense hundreds of thousands of years ago when we had to hunt for our food. It always wants to avoid pain. Again, kind of makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. And it always wants to seek pleasure. Now, the reason this made sense hundreds of thousands of years ago is because the way that we were motivated to get up out of a cave was to seek pleasure. So whenever we had food, whenever we drank water, whenever we had sex, whenever we had the comfort of a pack or the warmth of our cave and a fire, we would get a hit of dopamine, and dopamine floods our body with pleasure. So that motivated us to take action. We wanted to feel that pleasure. So it motivated us to get up out of our cave and take the action of hunting and eating and having sex and the survival of the pack. We don't need that in our modern day world, because now what we have is manufactured false pleasures. And we have processed food, sugar, and alcohol. We have social media. We have false pleasures that our brain thinks is a survival requirement. Now, most of you listening to this, you're allowing your primal brain at the moment to be in charge. Your primal brain is driving the car of your life, and you're moaning about the destination it's taking you to. So what we want to do is get you in the driver's seat. And the way that I start to do that with my clients, and I highly recommend that you do this, is you name your primal brain. So my primal brain is called Sue, and it just makes me able to have a conversation with her. I can see her as this funny little cave woman character that kind of freaks out at a whole load of stuff. And I'm able to have a conversation with her to say, like, Sue, I've got you. Like, Nikki's in charge. Because luckily for you, you've got your prefrontal cortex. This is the higher part of your brain. So I'm talking here functioning adults. We're not talking about children or teenagers, but fully functioning adults have a fully formed higher brain, prefrontal cortex. And this is what makes you you. It enables you to think ahead of time. It enables you to think rationally, to think to the future and plan ahead. Only most of us are not listening to this part of our brain. We're being guided by this loud, primitive cave person voice. So when you name it, you detach yourself from it a little bit and you're able to have a conversation with it. And you're able to go, look, I'm in charge now. Thank you for your input, but we're not in a life-threatening situation, so it's not needed right now. You want to listen to your primal brain. If you're walking down a dark alley and someone comes running at you with a knife, you want to listen to that primitive instinct to either fight, run, or freeze, or fawn. But when you're paying for petrol and you're stood in front of all the chocolates, that is not a life-threatening moment. When you're sat on your sofa watching Netflix and you know that you've got half a jar of Nutella in your cupboard, that is not a life-threatening moment. So we don't need to be guided by our primal brain at that time, because we are not in a life-threatening situation, although your primitive brain will absolutely think you are, because it needs to eat all the chocolate to survive. It is very much mistaken. So name your primal brain. And then once you've named your primal brain, the next thing we need to understand is how the world works. Now, this will go against everything that you've ever been raised to believe, I suspect. Unless, of course, you've been watching me for a while and you've heard me explain this to you before. Life gives us circumstances. Life gives us situations and events that we have no control over. These are things like the weather, other people's behavior, illnesses and bereavement, equipment breaking down. Circumstances are things like the amount of money that you do or don't have in your bank account. So your bank balance is a circumstance. Chocolate, cupcakes, brownies, fizzy drinks, all circumstances in life. They are external, they are outside of us. We have no control over them. And so many of us believe that it's our circumstances and those situations that make us feel an emotion. But circumstances are neutral. And what I mean by that is somebody else might experience exactly the same circumstance and have very different emotions about it. How is that possible? If it's the circumstance that creates the emotion, all the humans would feel the same way. But a lot of the time, all the humans don't feel the same way. And that's because it's our thoughts that create our feelings. So an event happens completely neutral until your eyes see it, your ears hear it, and your brain interprets it. So your brain tells you a story. It gives you a thought about this emotion. So it's actually your thoughts that create your feelings, not the circumstance. And the reason why this is so important to really take responsibility and ownership of is because at a time when you can't control a circumstance, so if let's take someone else's behavior, if someone's shouting at you, if it's them shouting or their behavior that makes you feel angry, then we try and control that person. And we can't control people. Have you noticed? We can't actually do that. Same with the weather. If it's the weather that makes you miserable, we cannot control the weather. So then we feel really helpless. If it's the circumstance that creates my emotion and I can't change the circumstance or I have no control over the circumstance, it feels like I've got no control over my emotion. And that's a very helpless place to be. But when we take full responsibility of the fact that actually it's because I'm thinking they shouldn't be saying that, it's that sentence, they shouldn't be saying that, that makes me feel angry. I am creating that emotion for myself. So when you look at the rain and you instantly go, isn't it miserable today? It's not the rain creating misery in your body. It's that thought, isn't it miserable today? So that thought creates that feeling. That is the best news, because if your thoughts create your feelings, you can control and change your thoughts, whereas you can't always control and change the situation. Now, just because your thoughts create your feelings, that does not mean to say you should always be happy and positive. Our lives are 50-50. Half the time we're designed to feel negative, half the time we're designed to feel positive. You can't have one without the other. And if you've got a circumstance of a bereavement and you're thinking, I'm really going to miss them, you don't want to feel happy and positive. Whilst that bereavement might not affect other humans on the planet, you might choose to feel grief. You might choose to feel sadness. When I hear stories on the news, sometimes, I don't really listen to the news very often, but they always filter through. There are some stories that I want to choose to be horrified by when I think that shouldn't be happening. So just because our thoughts create our feelings doesn't mean to say we always want to be happy and positive. But we do want to be deliberate. So understanding then that how you feel, the emotion that you're experiencing in your body, will make you take action. It will create a behavior within you. How you feel creates a behavior. Your emotions drive all of your actions, or sometimes it looks like inaction. And depending on what you do or don't do will give you a result in your life. So I'm going to give you an example of this, and I'm going to give you an example relating to sugar, but I'm going to do that in just a minute, because what I want to show you is the difference between a physical sensation in your body and an emotional sensation in your body, because there's a difference. So a physical sensation starts in the body and sends a message up to your brain. For example, maybe you've cut yourself, and the little messengers in our body do an amazing job of going, ouch, this hurts. Send message up to the brain, we need help. We need to get a plaster, or we need to get stitches, or we need to start healing ourselves. Similar with hunger. If you haven't eaten for a number of hours and your stomach is actually empty, that's a very physical sensation that's going from your stomach, and it's sending a message up to your brain to say, hey, we haven't eaten for a while. Maybe we ought to think about getting something to eat. Now, hunger is an interesting one, because just because you're hungry doesn't mean to say the world's going to end. My Friday focus that I'm releasing for this week is actually on being hangry. So that's that sensation when you're hungry and then you get angry because you're thinking I shouldn't be hungry. So that the emotional and the physical sensation comes together. So that's a physical sensation. It starts in the body and it sends a message up to the brain. An emotional sensation starts in the brain with a thought and sends a message down to the body. And that's what creates the emotional sensation. So physical starts from the body and goes up to the head. Emotional is from the head down to the body. Now, you can't always stop sentences coming into your mind, but the first part of our work is to become aware of what those sentences are, because once you're aware of them, then you get to control them. Then you get to decide, is me continuing to think that way helping me or not? So that's what you get to decide. So that's the difference between a physical sensation and an emotional sensation. I was just looking around because I thought my little dog came in, but maybe she decided not to listen. So understanding that circumstances are neutral until you have a thought about it, how you feel creates an emotion within your body. That emotion drives all of your actions or inactions that gives you a result in your life. Let's now actually apply that to a couple of real life scenarios, something that will be happening to you in your world. So your situation could be you see a chocolate bar. It could be that you have a time of day that you always think, oh, I'll have something nice now. Or it could be that you experience an emotion, maybe it's sadness or anxiety or boredom was a huge one over the pandemic. So understanding what triggers the rest of it, once you've got that awareness and that understanding, then you get to control it. So understanding that, let's take that you see a chocolate bar and you have a thought, oh, that'd be nice, or it's a treat, or it's a reward. But it's basically something along the lines of, that'll make me feel better, especially if you're experiencing an emotion or you're getting tired and you think, oh, it gives me energy. You will have a thought about it. And it's actually that thought that creates the craving for it. So the emotion is the craving. So it can't be the chocolate bar, because there are some people in the world that look at a chocolate bar, and I'm actually one of these people now, and go, oh, I don't really want to eat that. It's going to make me feel shit. I never used to be. I used to look at it and go, oh my God, that's going to be amazing. But I don't now. I'm like, no, that's going to make me feel rubbish. So it can't be the chocolate bar. The chocolate bar is an inanimate object. It has no emotions. So it can't possibly push an emotion into your body until your brain gets involved and you think it's a treat. It's a reward. It'll taste nice. I deserve something nice. It'll make me feel better. So it's that thought that creates the craving or the urge to eat it. When you have that emotion, because it feels a bit uncomfortable, you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. You respond to that emotion by eating the sugar. And when you eat the sugar, temporarily, you do feel better because you get that hit of dopamine and you go, oh, that was lovely. But then what happens is in the long term, you start to feel really rubbish because now you're putting on weight. You're feeling bloated, headaches, irritability, brain fog. So it actually doesn't make you feel better. It is not a treat to be overweight. It's not a reward to feel like shit. So this is our brain lying to us, which our primal brain does a lot to try and keep us safe, right? But it lies to us. And we are constantly believing the lies that it tells us. So a couple of other examples could be a to-do list. You might have a list of things that you want to do, and you have a thought, oh, I just don't have enough time. And when you think I don't have enough time, you feel overwhelmed. And then when you indulge in overwhelm, we see you scrolling on social media. We see you starting something and stopping, or flitting from one thing to another. You're not fully focused on one thing. You're not really present, because when you're with the kids, you're thinking, oh, I've got all this stuff to do. But when you're doing some of the household work, you're thinking, oh, I should be with the kids, or I should be at work, or I should be doing this. So you're never fully present. You go around telling your friends, oh, I'm so busy. I've got so much to do. You don't plan, or we see you over planning, depending on the type of person that you are. But ultimately, overwhelm doesn't actually get you doing the things on your to-do list. So the result of that is you waste the time you have. All because you're thinking, I don't have enough time, that creates overwhelm. Because you could think, right, let's go. When you think, right, let's go, then you feel motivated and empowered. And when you're motivated and empowered, you focus on one thing, you get it done. You focus on another thing, you get it done. You're fully present and focusing on the task. You don't get distracted, which is going to give you a result of getting your to-do list done. But not because of the to-do list, because your thought has changed and your emotion has changed. So another one could be, let's take the situation of maybe doing the school run in the mornings, trying to get out the door in a rush. So maybe your children start playing up and you have this thought, they're not listening. I've told them 5 times. This has never been me, by the way. Totally me, or was once. And so when you think they're not listening, you feel frustrated. And then what do we see you doing when you feel frustrated? We see you yelling or talking louder. We see you not taking a pause. You're not taking a step back or taking responsibility. All the blame is going on the children. And you don't look for other solutions. So you're very busy trying to change the child's behavior and focusing on them instead of focusing on the one thing that you can control, which is you. And when you're doing all of that from frustration, you don't listen to yourself. You don't focus on the one thing that you can control, which is you. And you don't create a version of you that you want to be. You end up being this like shouty, yelly version of you that nobody likes. But that's not because of the children. That's because you're thinking, they never listen. They're not doing as they're told. It's those sentences that make you feel frustrated. But when you take a pause and a step back and you own that frustration, you go, right, how do I want to show up? What do I want to do differently next time? What can I control? And it might be from that place, you go, right, tomorrow, we're going to start things a bit earlier. So then children that are just being children, they've got more time to be children. But that's you controlling you instead of trying to focus on the circumstance and the thing you can't control. So that's a couple of examples of how our thoughts create our emotions. So now let's look at what we need to do. So I'm going to explain this in a slightly different way, still using the chocolate as an example. And I'm sorry if this does trigger anybody as you're watching this, but excuse me, it just goes to show that it can't possibly be the chocolate, because there's not even a piece of chocolate in sight. So you're seeing this through a screen. So it's your thoughts about it. So you see the chocolate and you have a thought. It's a treat. And when you think it's a treat or it'll taste nice, that creates the craving, the urge to eat the chocolate. And at the moment you are responding to that emotion, you are reacting to it by eating the chocolate. And when you do that, because of the dopamine hit you get, temporarily you feel good. And because you very short period of time, you feel good, it does prove that thought true. It's a treat. But then what happens is you are then stuck in this vicious cycle going round and round and round, and you are stuck miserable in the middle. Nothing to do with the chocolate. The chocolate is way out. It's just a neutral circumstance. It's this thought, it's a treat. It'll make me feel better. It's a reward, which is a lie, because in the long term, you feel really rubbish. So what we want to do is interrupt ourselves at this point. And you can do this with absolutely any emotion in your life. Just like I showed you earlier with nervousness, I was feeling nervous because I was thinking, they're not going to want to hear what I have to say. I'm going to look stupid. I might forget what I need to say. So it's those thoughts that create my nervousness. I didn't respond from that nervousness. I interrupted myself. And what we want to do when we interrupt ourselves is then, instead of eating, what we actually want to do is allow ourselves to experience this emotion. And when you do that, temporarily, you're going to feel rubbish because now you're experiencing the urge for sugar, or you're experiencing the frustration course through your body, or you're allowing the anger to flow through you, or the overwhelm to be there. So temporarily, you're going to feel rubbish, but in the long term, you're going to feel so much better. And actually, then what happens is you become free. You become free of the hold of the sugar cravings. You become free of the hold of your emotions. Anxiety is no different. So let me talk a little bit about what I mean by allowing. If you imagine this whole process is like a waterfall, and it's the water starts to flow in your head. So you have the thought, it's a treat, and it starts the flow of emotions of the craving. And it's that water is starting to waterfall and flow down into your body. And what happens is you go, oh, I don't want to be feeling it. I don't want to be feeling it. And you use willpower to try and resist it, which doesn't work, because all that works then is all of that water that's still flowing still puts a load of pressure, and you cannot hold that up. And at some point, it's going to cave in, which is when you have a fuck it moment, right? And you eat the lot. What I'm suggesting that you do, and this is the most powerful skill that you can give yourself, is imagine that water to flow. There does not need to be any resistance. You can imagine it coming down into your body. You can breathe. You can open yourself up to it. And what happens then, it flows and it releases out of you. Whereas when you stop it here, or you put it in a box on a shelf, or you put it in a cupboard and close the door, it never releases itself. It never goes away. And then it's stuck, stagnating in your body. And we all know that when water is held, it goes bad. And that's what happens with anxiety, with grief, with anger, with sadness. We automatically do this with our negative emotions. We feel good, so we allow them to be there. But have you noticed that they don't hang around? If you book a holiday and your thoughts about the holiday, oh, it's going to be brilliant, and you feel excited, that excitement does not stay for the weeks until you actually go on holiday. You allow it to be there because it feels good, and then it disappears and there's a peace. And then it will come back the next time you think of the holiday, you think, oh, brilliant, it's exciting. And then you allow it and it disappears. Exactly the same thing can happen with all of the emotions in your life, not just the urge for sugar, but any emotion that you're currently avoiding. When you, and I know this may sound like that is not the information that you want to hear, but when you acknowledge that you're creating the emotion and you label it like, this is shame, this is embarrassment, this is nervousness, this is a craving for sugar, I am experiencing anger right now, I am experiencing overwhelm. Isn't that fascinating? I'm creating it because I'm thinking I've not got any time. When you experience the emotion and allow it to be there, you understand that it's completely harmless. There is no reason to eat it away. There is no reason to avoid it. You can allow yourself to experience it, release it, and the other side is peace. The craving will come back the next time you think about the chocolate bar, but it's not the chocolate bar. You don't have to hide it away, lock it away, and never have it in your cupboards. You can simply experience the urge for it and not respond. And what happens is the first few days of doing it is going to feel tough. It feels hard. But you can do hard things. Because I'm going to suggest that the symptoms that you have because you're eating sugar is hard. The weight gain, the the aggravated medical conditions, the brain fog, the irritability, the highs and lows of energy. That's hard. And it's a long-term hard. Whereas this is a short-term discomfort that actually gives you so much more energy, the life and the body that you want. And when you learn how to experience your emotions and you realize that they are completely harmless, you can feel the nervousness of a presentation and do it anyway. Now you're building your emotional resilience. Now you're getting stronger. And the way that we get stronger is by doing the harder things. So that's how you deal with an emotion. Actually, really simple. You interrupt yourself, you breathe, and you allow yourself to fully experience that emotion. And then it disappears. And on the other side of that, if you keep doing it repeatedly, you will feel like a badass. So that is the end of my workshop. I'm Nikki Bevan. I'm the emotional resilience coach. And if you ever have any questions, please, please, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you want to stop listening now, if you've got everything that you need, brilliant, you can turn the recording off. You can carry on about your evening. But if there's a part of you that's gone, that kind of makes sense, and I'm ready to get control of my sugar cravings. I know that you've had enough of feeling fed up. I know that you're ready and you're determined to get control of your cravings. And if that's you, with your permission, I would like to tell you about the Sugar Free Academy. Now, the Sugar Free Academy is a 21-day self-paced course. Actually, it's not really self-paced, but it's self-generating. So it's basically designed to teach you this skill and further skills in order to get you the freedom from your sugar cravings so that they no longer have a hold over you. So if you're busy, if you're a little bit bold, and if you're determined, this is the course for you. And it's a course. It's not something that's just nice to watch and then you don't have to do anything. With just a few minutes every day, this course will give you that freedom of sugar if you do the work, if you do what I teach. And it's only £19. Now, there will be some of you that might think, well, that's cheap. It's going to be a load of rubbish. But it's £19 because it's not been about for that long. And so I really want to encourage people to go through it so I can get the feedback. I can get testimonies. I really want to get people going through it because I know this shit works. So I've priced it in a way that to encourage people to do it, to try it. But please don't buy it if you're not actually ready to change. Don't waste your money if you're not ready to change. If you're not, I don't really want to give up sugar. I'm not willing to give up sugar for 21 days. Then this is not the course for you. But if you're listening to this and you have had enough and you are ready and you're a bit too busy to talk to me one-on-one, then try this course. Because every day I will come into your inbox and tell you what you need to do that day in order to get control of your sugar cravings. And it's only £19. So you have really nothing to lose. So I will put a link to the Sugar Free Academy in the comments when this live gets posted back into the group. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And if you're ready to get freedom from your sugar cravings, sign up to the Sugar Free Academy. Have an amazing evening or the rest of your day if you're listening to this in the morning.